Inside these doors is literally Aladdin's cave of Nelson Mandela's life. There's everything from the number 6 rugby shirt he wore when the Springboks won the World Cup back in 1995, a year after he'd become president. There are shelves just stacked with the awards. He won over 700, or was presented with over 700 of awards and medals and doctorates from around the world. And here, just some of the thousands of photographs and pictures that were done of him, presented to him, that he sat for, that give you a flavour of this extraordinary man's life. Well, inside these huge vaults in the archive, there are some real surprises. I mean, here, Nelson Mandela had his own replica of the Football World Cup, presented when it was staged here in 2010. There's a cricket bat signed by Brian Lara saying, "A man that has inspired the world. I love you, President Mandela. My best wishes to my personal hero." There are boxing gloves, there are sportswear that has been dedicated to them. There is everything that gives you a flavour of just what esteem he's been held in by the world at large. Well, I'm here, and this really is the inner sanctum. I'm here with Rizia, who's the Chief Archivist, so you're the keeper of the real treasures. What have you got here for us? This is, I think, the very first sort of known document relating to Mandela, isn't it?
Yes, this membership card is from 1929, when Madiba was about 11 years old. It's a membership card to the Sunday School of the Methodist Church. We don't have a birth certificate or anything earlier than 1929.
This is him at school, and this is a little bit more grown up. This is, what, late teens?
This is more or less 1938. This is Hilltown School, where he attended as a boarder, and that's him in the background there.
Wasn't in the background for much of his life, eh? Moving on to the time he became an activist, these are the first known pictures of him actually at Robben Island.
Yes, in 1977 there was speculation that he was either very ill or that he had passed on, so the apartheid government organized a visit of the media to Robben Island, and on that day they were told not to go and work in the quarry, but to work in the garden. So he was taken by surprise, and you can see from his expression in this photo that he's not very happy. And we have a letter of him complaining about being put on display. Interesting,
you've got documents that he wrote when he was in prison. Tell us more about this, Rizia.
These are not, we have 2 of these notebooks. It's drafts of letters that he wrote when he was on the island. In the initial years, he was only allowed 500 words every 6 months.
There's a really remarkably good record of everything he thought and wrote in prison.
Yes, I think we're quite fortunate that he was such a meticulous record keeper. There's a set of letters when his son died while he was in Robben Island. So he's writing to Winnie Mandela, who was his wife at the time, the mother of his son, Evelyn, his first wife, and then he writes to his other son and to the prison authorities, informing them about the death of his
son died, but he wasn't allowed to go to the funeral, was he?
Yes, he wasn't allowed to go to the funerals. It's quite emotional. His letters reflects his pain at not being able to attend his mother's funeral, his son's funeral. So if you go through a lot of the letters, you can feel his pain that he's going through. Makes one very teary-eyed.
It's interesting, you've got his very first real, genuine legal passport here, which he didn't get until after he'd come out of jail, after he was released.
So this is his first ever legal passport, and he got it a few days after his release.
One of the places he went to, of course, was Oslo to collect the Nobel Peace Prize, and I imagine that's one of the most prized exhibits here, isn't it?
Yes, a lot of people love to see the medal. It's really precious.
I think it's about ensuring that the memory becomes a resource to continuing struggles for justice. And of course, whether you're talking about South Africa specifically or about the world where we are as a human project, there's a lot of work to be done.
It's presumably a never-ending job, this, isn't it?
Well, it's probably the fundamental lesson that he taught us, is that the long walk to freedom never ends.
Not far from the archives themselves was Nelson Mandela's own personal space, his private office that he worked in almost every day until ill health took over around 3 years ago. And it is where you find his own private and personal memories. Some extraordinary memorabilia here. Apart from all his favourite books, there's a policeman's helmet from the Metropolitan Police in London. There are photographs of him with friends and family and world leaders. One of them here, the first time he met Barack Obama, just before he'd become American president. There is a picture here as well of him and Muhammad Ali. They became very close friends and of course had one thing big in common: boxing. Nelson Mandela loved to box when he was young. And the walls are covered in photographs, perhaps none more poignant than this one. It's a photograph of the two sons that predeceased him, one who died aged 25 in a road crash at a time when Nelson Mandela was in Robben Island jail, and wrote to the governor to try and get out to go to the funeral but wasn't allowed to, something that he described as inhumane. The other son died a few years ago of AIDS, and it's a photograph that Nelson Mandela cherished having on his walls. Here on a lighter side, a reminder that cows play a big part in tribal life in South Africa, and Nelson Mandela loved to sit in his homestead down in Kunu in the Transkei homeland and watch the cows on the fields outside. This office is not only full of memories of Nelson Mandela, it also brings back memories for me, because it was in this place around 5 years ago that I last sat and chatted to Nelson Mandela, the man I'd known when I was a correspondent in South Africa, the man I'd seen come out of jail and make that long journey to becoming president. I'll never forget our chat here or our final walk together in South Africa.